I was still carrying the first box when a pearl-white SUV slid into my driveway like it paid the mortgage door. Pops open out. Steps this woman in a navy blazer with a clipboard welded to her hand and a smile that felt like a warning. "Welcome to Willow Bridge. You have 90 days to comply with the association, or vacate." Then she snatched the photocopy of my deed. I'd been showing the neighbor and tore it in half. Paper snowed over my new grass, while my kids froze on the porch, and my wife's face went from joy to what just happened in 1 second. I said as calm as I could manage, "Ma'am, we're not in your association." And she tilted her head like a hawk spotting lunch. "Every home here is subject to community standards. The clock starts now." Then she did a little stage whisper into her phone. "Porter timeline is on track," like I wasn't standing right there. That was my first minute as a homeowner in Cedar Glen, Ohio. And yeah, that happened. I called 911. The dispatcher asked if anyone was in danger. Just my sanity. I said they promised an officer in 2 hours, so we stood in our own yard like exhibits, while clipboard lady handed out glossy violation slips to anybody who would take one. Big words about setbacks and environmental review and architectural compliance, all designed to make normal people feel small. And my wife, Jenna, who used to be an investigative journalist before she started teaching, leaned in and whispered, "Wrong seal, wrong. Font, wrong. County." But the part that hurt was watching a couple neighbors nod, like they were grateful someone was finally in charge. A quiet man across the street walked over, hands in his pockets. "Name's Tom. Han, retired detective," he said. Then looked at the SUV queen, measuring my mailbox like it offended her. She gave me the same 90-day speech I lost my place in '88. And you know what I mean? When I say my stomach dropped, because right then, I understood this wasn't about rules. It was about pressure. The officer finally rolled up, wrote down property dispute, told me I could file small claims for the torn photocopy, handed me a brochure, like a bandage for a broken leg, and drove away. So I ordered cameras that we hadn't budgeted for, called 3 law firms, who each wanted $5,000 just to start a file and document a pattern. Then sat at the kitchen table piecing together my shredded deed. Like a puzzle, Jenna set a hand on my shoulder and asked the question that kept me awake for a week. What if the system's built to help people like her? Not us. It took 7 days for punch 2. We woke up to the pool looking like milk. Somebody had jammed quick-set mortar into the skimmer baskets and dump-shocked it like a public facility. Max pressed his palm to the glass and asked if he could still cannonball. I said, "Not today." Paid $750 to clean and retest. Pretended I wasn't keeping a spreadsheet in my head. Midweek, a man showed up with a laminated badge and a metal case. "County water quality. He said your pool chemicals are leaching into wetlands." I looked at the trickle of a creek behind our fence and nearly laughed, and I put the real county office on speaker. The woman on the line said, "We have no one by that name, and residential pools aren't in our jurisdiction." The man blinked, smiled the way people do when the trick fails, and left fast, and I stood on the porch naming a new crime in my head, impersonating authority to make your neighbor move. Then came the meeting at the community center. The SUV queen finally had a name, Diana Cross, and she worked the room like a corporate trainer. Pie charts, stock photos. The phrase, "your investment," tossed like confetti, and people nodded. Because fear sells. But halfway through, the doors opened, and a woman in a charcoal suit walked in. Like she owned the air. Mia called her counsel for the Ellis family. she said, then put Diana's notices next to real county forms and let the differences speak for themselves. Wrong typeface misspelled departments return addresses to a P.O. box behind a vape shop. The murmurs started. Diana reached for the folder, clipped the projector cord, and her laptop flashed on the wall. Dead center was a folder called Ellis Plan, Phase 2 next to Hale Ridge, Timeline and Backups. The whole room went quiet enough to hear someone swallow, and for the first time since the SUV pulled up, I felt the ground tilt our way. After that, we got bold and smart, or maybe just tired of being scared. Jenna ran a quiet sting. You'd never guess happened in a grocery store aisle. She caught Diana near the avocados, softened her voice, asked how community leadership really works, flattered her a little, and recorded a confession that turned my blood cold. Some people don't fit community culture, Diana said lightly. You steer them with pressure and timelines. 12 in 3 years. We saved property values. Saved like we were a mess to be cleaned up. Mia filed complaints with the county, and the state looped in a contact at the U.S. Attorney's Office because fake inspectors aren't a neighborhood spat. They're federal, and pressure started gathering like storm clouds, Diana answered. With theater at dawn, our verge was packed with for sale signs from a dozen companies, all saying motivated seller. By 7 a.m., my phone lit up with, "Are you moving kids at the bus stop?" whispered. A couple neighbors looked relieved, like the storm might skip their roof. Jenna called every number none had placed them, all promised to remove them, but the point wasn't accuracy, it was humiliation. Then, the developer's name leaked out of Diana's stage whispers, order Hale Ridge Holdings. Tom said it smelled like fixer money that never wants to be photographed. Week later, a business article hit the local feeds. Hale Ridge ends relationship with community liaison. After irregularities corporate, for she's on her own. Tom's old contacts said that her accounts were frozen, and her bluff was cracking and desperate. People get sloppy. Which we were about to witness because 2 men in official-looking windbreakers rolled up in a white truck. Federal compliance check, the tall one said. Your front garden encroaches on protected drainage. I stared at the hostas called an actual federal office, got told. We don't regulate suburban landscaping, and we don't show up unannounced and right. Then unmarked sedans glided down the street. Real agents stepped out. The fakes bolted, one, tripped over a yard gnome, and ate the sidewalk clipboard. Skittering like a bad magic trick, neighbors gasped, and Cedar Glen finally stopped pretending this was quirky drama. Investigators cycled through our living room for days. A plain-spoken sergeant named Rivera sat at our table and said the sentence I'd been praying to hear. We're treating this as organized fraud, not a neighbor dispute. And then he added the twist. I didn't see coming Diana Cross wasn't Diana's legal name. Deirdre Kane warrants in 2 states for similar schemes. The SUV queen had a past, and it was catching up. Families from 2 other towns came forward with almost copy-paste stories. The 90-day clock, vague violations. Forced sales when people were exhausted. Barbara next door organized watches so Jenna could sleep without jumping at every car that idled kids chalked. We protect our neighbors on the sidewalk, and I decided if this was a war, at least the good guys had finally shown up. Court day didn't feel heroic. It felt small and stubborn. Cameras on the steps, trembling hands on your knees. You say your kids' names in your head to remember why you're there. Deirdre shuffled in, wearing the weight of bad decisions. No lawyer, a cardboard box. She waved like a flag, tried to talk about conspiracies and infiltrators, and how we were federal plants wrecking community standards. The judge, a woman with a tired, kind voice, kept asking for evidence, not vibrations, and Deirdre kept rattling paper saying, Mia stood, and if you've never seen a professional take a mess and square it to true. It's something side-by-sides of real and fake documents, emails from a Hale Ridge account, nudging timelines, bank transfers that lined up too perfectly. To be honest, audio clips of the grocery aisle confession, witnesses who cried through 82-day countdowns, Tom explaining the tactic like a manual he'd read too many times. Isolate, escalate, exhaust. And when the county investigator described the fake badges and the printer seized from a storage unit, Deirdre snapped, pointed at the stand. Those are real notices. I had authority. Porter promised it would work, then tossed papers at the bench, moved shoes, scraped tile, and the room exhaled like it had been holding the breath of a whole neighborhood. The verdict came quick guilty on harassment document fraud. Conspiracy to commit property fraud, 18-month supervised probation, $75,000, restitution, a 1,000-foot restraining order, plus other states waiting their turn. And I didn't cheer. I just sat there and let safe back into my bones, the way warmth seeps into cold hands, slow and stubborn. The neighborhood held a cookout, not some confetti parade, just grills. Folding chairs, kids chasing bubbles. Someone hung a banner across the cul-de-sac that read, Day 91. People laughed the way you laugh. After the tree misses your roof by inches, restitution started arriving in pieces. We used some to launch a small fund for families in our county dealing with this exact mess. Mia built a network so the next person would get a lawyer on the first ring. Tom trained officers on the difference between a grudge and a campaign. Lily put her stuffed panda on a shelf and told me he liked his room. Max finally did that cannonball and came up yelling like he'd invented water. And I cried cleaning the skimmer because I hadn't realized how long I'd been clenching my jaw. You want the cinematic ending. The triumphant fade, what you get is a bus stop. A few weeks later, I saw Deirdre on a bench with a thrift store suitcase and a notebook talking into a phone, tracing something with her finger maps. Maybe addresses. I didn't confront her. I took a breath, sent every detail to Mia, hugged my kids a little longer when I got home, and reminded myself of something Tom said: predators don't retire, they relocate. So here's the part where I hand the mic to you. Was I right to make noise, to fight, to drag this into the sunlight? Or should I have kept my head down, paid a fee that wasn't mine, and bought peace on the cheap? Do community standards protect neighborhoods, or are they a crowbar for the loudest person on the block? Tell me what you think. Tell me what you've seen. And if you're living under a countdown right now, document everything. Lean on your people. Don't let anyone in a blazer make you forget your rights. Like the video if this helped. Subscribe if you want more true life stories with the shine peeled back, and drop your take below, because the more we compare notes, the less power those playbooks have, and because Day 91 is real, you just have to keep walking toward it.